All right, Learn Jazz Live. I am here with the wonderful, the amazing Chris Davis here, who gave an incredible workshop for us, How to Become the Ultimate Musician, 5 Accelerators for Your Growth. So, Chris, I'm honored to have you here at Learn Jazz Live. You're just an awesome guy and an amazing musician. So, thanks for being here, man.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for the invitation.
All right, let's get straight to the questions. And if you're in the live chat right now, feel free to start asking them. We also have some questions on the workshop page. This one's from Harold. Harold asks, at one point you talk about connecting to the heart of people in the audience. At another point, you say to play like yourself, don't be someone else. I agree with both those things, but there is a tension between the two. It is unlikely that the audience will be where you are as a player. In order to connect, you may need to modify your approach. Do you have any thoughts on how to navigate between those two aims, both of which I agree are really important, but which can contradict each other?
They are one and the same. They are the same thing. And I think it can take some time to realize that. Um, and I think that's why it's important to perform, because these are lessons you learn as you perform. So it's kind of like if you're with a group of friends and you're just trying to fit in. I know that's kind of like a high school thing. Maybe as adults we don't try to do that. But one day you'll realize, hey man, I just need to be myself. And that's how you connect to the hearts of the people. And then people really start to see you for who you are and be like, hey man, that's an all right guy. I want to be around that person a little bit more. Doesn't matter what type of personality you have. So it's really one and the same thing.
Awesome. Cool. Here is another question from Stefano. This is a really great question, by the way. What struck me most was the part about performing, because it's something I'd love to do, although I don't have so much as a conducive environment. Well, probably I don't have the ability to do it without making a fool of myself. So here's the question. When do you know it's time you can get live? How do you know you're good enough to perform live without feeling a total moron for not being good enough? What do you
Okay,
think, Chris?
yeah, don't wait. Don't wait. That's my answer. So, and I give you an example. When we're in school, it doesn't matter, excuse me, if we're teaching elementary students, high school students, college students, adults, it doesn't matter. Typically, like at the beginning of the season or the school year or soon after you start, I've learned over time it's best to have a concert of some type. It's not about being ready, it's not about how good you're performing yet. It's about learning the lessons that come with performing. So, typically in the beginning, it's like you look at the performers and it's deer in the headlight type of look. Oh my goodness, everybody's
Mhm.
nervous, and you make mistakes that you normally wouldn't make. And so you just want to get to that as soon as you can, so that you can overcome that challenge as soon as you can. Then you will be able to perform at your best level over time. So it's not about being good enough at first.
Yeah, it's the lessons that you're learning as you're going through the process, right?
That's true.
Awesome.
And I had to
Um,
learn that as a teacher too.
yeah.
I re-
Oh,
yeah, I remember
totally.
my first time standing in front of a band, and I was the conductor, not the performer. I felt so helpless. For the first time, I couldn't play. I couldn't play to help things along. So that's a whole other thing.
Well, on that note, we do have another question that kind of plays right into that. So this is
Okay.
from Milana. Hi, Chris. Have you ever had stage fright experience, and would you have any practical tips on how to overcome that initial nervousness that makes you forget everything before you go on stage? Great question.
Yeah, I nearly passed out before. Um,
Woo.
I didn't hit the floor, but I did stumble. And I'll explain that and keep that question up because I know I'm gonna have to look at it again. Um, but what happened? Well, a lot of physical things happened. For example, I didn't eat well for that day at all. I wasn't drinking water. That plays into it. And then the psychological part of it, I was playing with someone that I really looked up to since I was a child. I was in a big auditorium, it was full, so I was looking at the external instead of just locking in to what the job was. I wasn't really thinking about the job and the music. I was thinking about other things. So that's the key, I think, just to lock in to the job you have to do, and then know that the work that you put in is good enough. So hopefully you do the preparation, and then just trust that's good enough, and come with an attitude of, hey guys, this is what I worked up. Here's my presentation to you. I hope you enjoy it. And again, don't really try to impress.
Mm. That's really good. And Lewis asked a similar question, overcoming the fear factor important from professional musicians, which I feel like you kind of touched up on that. It's like not feeling like you have to impress. It is an innate feeling, though, right? I can remember Russell Malone one time walking into one of my gigs, and when I looked up and I saw him, and I was like, I think I was in the middle of a solo, and I was like,
Yeah,
like kind of like choked for a second. it's a funny experience when that happens.
man, let me tell you, something similar happened to me. Wynton Marsalis came and he stood directly next to me, like right here. And I'm like,
Woo.
all right, well, I'm just gonna play. He was
Yeah.
looking at the music. If I miss a note, he's gonna know. I forget it.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. I mean, because there's no, I mean, it's that that growth mindset, right? It's not about how good you sound now. It's how good you're going to sound as a result of taking the action that you're taking now, right? Which is showing up and doing it. Would you agree with
That's
that statement?
Yeah, that's for sure. And I want to add to that, Brent. Thanks for bringing
Hmm.
that up. We're playing Broadway shows right now, and
Hmm.
we're currently in previews. So opening night hasn't happened yet, but we're performing in front of a live audience. That's a great example. Why will we perform for a live audience and opening night is a week and a half away? That's showing you how important it is to perform. We did have mistakes. Tech team had mistakes. We had to pause the show for the
Mm.
tech team, but that's what previews are for.
Mm.
We're making mistakes even in the pit. It's a live performance, and we're making mistakes. And so we know, and this is how I think, and I believe everybody else does too in the pit. We've even talked about it. Tomorrow, we're going to be a little bit better. We're not going to make the same mistake. We're going to make maybe a different mistake. We don't want to make any, but we're not going to make the same mistake. And so
Right.
performing is all about growth. Did
I
we
love that.
answer Lewis's question?
Yeah, that was yep, you got it. I think that's right on point. This is a question from Allah. He's asking. He says, "Inspirational presentation, Chris. Good take on the importance of performance. It can be a challenge to connect with like-minded musicians that you can play with regularly." Bradford Marsalis once said in an interview that there's much that the audience will enjoy, but then jazz musicians might like to nerd over giant steps.
Right.
What are we to do if we really just enjoy playing music for ourselves? There are some musicians out there who really let their ears be the primary audience. What note phrase does the ear want to hear next? And the fun comes to share the music with other musicians who play the same stuff. So if I'm understanding the heart of his question, he's kind of asking maybe there. What do you think about this, Chris? Is there like sort of this conflict of trying to play hip like tunes and stuff, but you just want to play it like yourself? Is that the way you're reading through that too? Or
One more time.
so it looks it can be a challenge to with like musicians you play with regularly. Bradford Marsalis once said there's music the audience will enjoy, but then jazz musicians might like to nerd over giant steps. What do we do if we really just enjoy playing music for ourselves? So
Okay, let's
maybe
stop right there. Yeah. All right. Giant steps, nerding out. Okay, cool. Got it. Sorry, man.
no, it's fine. It was the question wasn't
No
quite
worries.
clear cut. Yeah.
Yeah. So what do we do if we really want to enjoy playing music for ourselves? That's simple to me. Just play music is the short answer. Um, but go to the next part. I don't want to
Yep.
be dismissive. Yeah, let your ears be the primary audience. What phrase? Okay, and the fun comes out. All right, so the first thought I had when you were reading it the first time was just to give. I like to think about coming to the stage as someone with the gift to give to the audience. So, in terms of like playing giant steps or playing something else that's maybe not so complicated, I think if you approach it either way, like here's a gift, and from a place of sincerity, it will be received well. So I think it all has to do with the heart. So if I approach it like, hey, check out all this slick stuff I can do.
Right.
That's when people are kind of like, ah, man, come on, next. Because I have a theory, guys, and it's in music too. Doctors, for example, do all the training, the years of training it takes to become a doctor. But mostly when you go to the doctor, it's like, oh yeah, let's go over the counter and pick this up. It's so simple. So what does that mean for a musician? I've noticed long notes actually connect to the heart. Quarter notes connect to the heart.
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah, and you were mentioning that too in your workshop, right?
Oh, I
Just
did. Okay.
it's so important, because I think a little bit like some of the question as I'm like rereading a little bit, some of the question is, um, there. I think there can be this sometimes maybe this pressure in a jazz environment that you have to play a certain way, or you have to play more virtuosic, or you have to play complicated tunes. It's like there's this rite of passage sort of mentality, and maybe there's some pressure around that. I think he's trying to ask, well, what if I just want to play what I want to play? I think is also what he's trying
Yeah.
to say.
And I
So
would and I would say do that.
do it. Yeah, just do it. I love that. It's a simple and amazing answer. Here's another one from Aisha. She asked, "What makes a productive practice session?"
Great question. A productive practice session includes goals. That's the first thing. Um, Goals and order is the word that comes to mind.
Hmm.
So, something that I'm pretty big on is setting a time. So, as a trumpet player, I really can't practice for 3 hours at a time, like some saxophone player friends of mine. So, after like 40 minutes to 60 minutes, I'm done.
Right.
So I know when I sit down, I assume I'm only going to do 40, 45 minutes. And I just work backwards from there. And I spend a specific amount of time on certain tasks. For example, I buzz the mouthpiece as a trumpet player. I do that for 7 minutes. That's what I do. All right. I do long tones for anywhere from 7 minutes to 40 minutes. And that depends on which version of long tones I'm doing. So, like, I know how long it's going to take. It's not like, oh man, I feel like doing this now, you know. So, I think that's what makes a productive practice session. And then also, not trying to do too much at once.
Mm.
It's just realizing, hey, if I do a little bit now, I can come back to it later today or tomorrow, and I'll just keep growing because
Mm.
that's how you get better.
Yeah. Love that. This is sort of along those lines. Let's see if there's anything else you want to add to this or not. As trumpet players, we have so much work before we even get to jazz. How do you balance practicing the horn, practicing jazz language from the mind, and jazz language from the heart? Before you answer the question, it's funny because I came out with a like a YouTube video years ago that's about the 30-minute practice session. I still do talk about those, but I've always gotten, from trumpet players and trombone players like, well, it takes me 30 minutes just to get warmed up. So maybe that's along the lines what he's talking about there.
Oh yeah, I'm very familiar with this. Let me. How do you balance practicing the horn, practicing the language, and from the mind and the heart? All right. So first of all, I'm a very strong believer. Actually, I think I said this. Just don't skip fundamentals, man, because then it catches up to you. You'll
Mhm.
be in the middle of something. It's like, oh man, why was that so hard? It's normally easy. So that's it's not even like for me, it's not like, oh man, I have to do this. It's like, cool, I get to do this because I know if I don't, I'm going to regret it later. So it's just having multiple sessions. That's it. So if you have to spend more time, or if you want to spend more time on the jazz side, you can shorten up the fundamental side. It's just shorten it up.
So is it possible for a trumpet player to have a 30-minute practice session?
Yeah, it's possible. Well, if you're trying to include everything in jazz and the fundamentals, you're just simply not going to have a lot of time on any one
Right.
thing.
Right, right.
So, if you know that, and then it just depends on your goals too. Like, what are you trying to get better at right now?
Mm.
And another thing that I really am big on, I don't think I talked about this in the video, but practicing jazz, right? Or practicing the language for a wind player does not always mean you have to play your instrument. I don't always
Mm.
have to play my trumpet if I'm practicing this. It's all about listening and play the keys, guys. Play the keyboard. And you don't have to be, you know, a virtuoso piano player. Like two fingers, I don't care, block chords. It's all about just hearing it and imagining what you're going to do. And all that stuff goes here and then it comes out of the I keep pointing behind me because I got my horn back here. But it comes out of the bell. So practice you can also practice on the keys.
Awesome. Love that. Here's a question. Do you have any tips for developing a practice group? I'm trying to start up a combo group.
Nice. Um just ask people. They typically say yes. The biggest challenge is probably in your head. Is Scott here right now? Ask Scott if he's already invited people to practice. If he's here.
Scott, have you invited people to practice? Let's see. Yeah, he can hear you. He can hear you.
Oh, cool. Because
Let us know, Scott.
yeah, because normally I find you just ask people and they're down. Because I've gone through phases when I'm like, oh man, I want this person, that person to play in the group, and I'm like, man, but they're probably busy. But when I ask them, they're like, yeah, it's really simple.
Yeah.
The hardest
Well,
the hardest thing might be finding a place, to get together. But go ahead and ask.
yeah. We'll wait for him to chime in there. Well, question. I'm wondering because he's saying develop a practice group. I'm wondering what are your thoughts about like how would you practice with somebody else, right? With a group
Oh,
of
okay, that's
people.
a good question. Trying to start a combo group. All right, so if you're going to get together, and you want to keep a group together, again, I'm really big on organization. So even if you don't do everything you plan, still have a plan. So have a plan for your time together. Even if it's like, hey, for the first 20 minutes, we're just going to hang and talk. That's part of the plan. Um, what tunes do you want to practice today?
Mm,
Write that stuff down and let people know this is what we're getting into. I've asked and I'm looking for good platers.
players.
All players, okay. Is there more to the question? It says what structure?
No, that's it. I think
Okay.
yeah, just like what structure would you have? I think you're kind of explaining it right now.
Yeah, so have a plan. Have a list of tunes or that you want to get into. And also know you don't have to play every song like top to end. You can just hit the bridge on one tune and go to the next tune. It's really all about organization.
Awesome. Here's a question from Lana again. When I sing/play piano, I connect with a strong emotion, but I have trouble of losing control when doing it live. Where to find that costume in order to not feel
Mm.
real pain on stage? Oh, well, first of all, I feel like that's a good problem to have that you're able to emotionally express yourself through your instrument. So that's good. But go for it, Chris.
Yeah, that sounds to me like it's part of stage fright again, and then also maybe not performing enough. These are things you cannot
Mhm.
escape. You have to go through this. So I would give some advice. I don't know if you're already doing it or not, but um, sit down and reflect after your concert with your pen and your paper, and write down your thoughts. Whatever, like free writing session. What happened? Why did I feel this way? What did you notice? Any
Mm.
sounds you heard? Absolutely anything that comes to mind. I That helps me to learn and just become more settled. And eventually, you'll become more at home on the stage. It's a good thing that you have strong emotion. Um, it sounds like there's some mind monsters getting to you. That's what I call them. I have trouble losing control when doing it live. Oh, wait a minute, losing control. Oh, I missed that part.
Yeah, there's kind of layers of depth to the question where
Yeah,
it'd almost be helpful to ask back, like, what exactly is meant by some of it, but
yeah, I want to talk to this person some more. But if you're losing control, um, to me, that's a sign that maybe you have to pay a little more attention because I believe a player should always be in control.
yeah.
Does that make sense, Britt?
Yeah, that makes total sense. Let's without having more context to the question, let's end
Yeah,
it with one last quick answer here.
sure.
Walter asks, "What are your suggestions for practice improving and use of recording yourself?"
Use of recording yourself. Um, Couple of things, man. So listen to your example. You play yourself, record yourself playing it, and compare. Man, was that it, or am I far away? But
Hmm.
the next thing is you always have to ask the question, why? Why was it short? Why or what's different? What do I need to change? And then practice executing those things. And I'll tell you, um, often, and we're in the jazz group here, often the difference between like the pros and the recordings and what we're doing is the articulation and the sense of swing. Those are primarily the main two things that can always be improved.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for this wonderful Q&A session. All of this was super helpful, man, and what an amazing workshop. Really appreciate having you for Learn Jazz Live. The next workshop coming up is Jens Larson. So go ahead and check his out. We'll have a Q&A at 11:40 for him. So go ahead, check out his workshop if you haven't already. Ask as many questions as you'd like. Again, thank you, Chris, and we'll see you all soon again.
All right, take it easy.